The greatest secret I learned after my awakening was not the nature of the universe, but the profound power of what should never be spoken. It's a strange thing to say, I know. In a world that begs us to share our stories, to broadcast our truths from every digital rooftop, the idea of holding something sacred and silent feels almost like a betrayal. But I'm an old man now, and if the sea and the sky have taught me anything, it is that the deepest currents are the quietest, and the brightest stars shine in the most profound silence. My story is not one of a guru on a mountaintop, but of a simple keeper of a light, and the hard-won wisdom that comes from learning when to illuminate and when to simply be. I remember the young man Leo who came to me last autumn. He had that fire in his eyes, a look I recognized because I saw it in my own reflection in the mirror 50 years ago. He was brimming, overflowing with the light of a recent shattering insight. He had touched something vast and timeless, and the experience had left him incandescent. He wanted to change the world. He wanted to shout his newfound truth to everyone he met, to shake them from their slumber, to hand them the key he had found. He sat in my small cottage, the scent of sea salt and old wood filling the air between us, and he spoke for an hour, his words tumbling over each other like waves crashing on the shore. When he finally fell silent, breathless and expectant, he looked at me, waiting for my affirmation, for my blessing on his crusade. Instead, I poured him another cup of tea, its steam curling into the quiet air. "Let me tell you a story, Leo," I said, my voice as worn as the driftwood on the beach. "It's the story of a foolish young man who was given a lantern and, in his eagerness, nearly used it to burn down the entire village he meant to save. That foolish young man, of course, was me. My own awakening did not happen in a monastery or during a deep meditation. It happened on a Tuesday, while I was mending a fishing net. The sun was warm on my back, the gulls were crying overhead, and in one seamless, eternal moment, the net, the gulls, my hands, and the entire world dissolved into a single, breathing, luminous presence. The I that I had known my entire life simply fell away, like a coat I didn't realize I was wearing. What was left was not an absence, but an all-encompassing presence, a peace so profound it was indistinguishable from love, a clarity so bright it was blinding. And my first mistake, my very first act as this new, formless awareness, was to try and put it into words. This is the first thing you must learn to hold in the sanctuary of your own heart, your direct experience of awakening. It is a treasure forged in the fires of a universe that is uniquely yours. To try and describe it is like trying to capture the scent of rain in a jar. You can describe the jar, the water, the conditions, but the wild, fresh essence of it will always escape. I ran home to my wife, my dear Anna. I tried to explain. I used words like oneness, ego death, and cosmic consciousness. I told her that she wasn't just Anna, but the entire universe experiencing itself. I watched as a wall of confusion and then fear rose in her beautiful eyes. She saw not a liberated man, but a husband who had lost his moorings. My grand cosmic poetry sounded like madness. I tried with my friends, my family. They would nod politely, their smiles strained, and then change the subject to the weather or the price of fish. My ineffable, life-altering truth became a social awkwardness, a strange story they would tell about me when I wasn't around. I learned that the language of the soul does not translate into the grammar of the mind. Sharing the direct experience doesn't liberate others. It often isolates you. It turns a sacred living reality into a dead concept, and in doing so, you lose a piece of it yourself. Keep that fire in your own hearth. Let it warm you. Those who are cold will be drawn to its warmth without you ever having to describe the flame. My second mistake was a natural progression from the first. When people couldn't understand the what, I decided I would give them the how. I became a zealot for my particular path. This is the second thing you must not share, the specific methods and practices that worked for you. I had spent years reading esoteric texts, practicing a very specific breathing technique for hours a day, and adhering to a strict diet. This was my boat, the vessel that had carried me across the ocean. So I started trying to sell my boat to everyone I met, convinced it was the only one that could sail. My best friend, Samuel, was a man burdened by anxiety. I saw his suffering, and in my spiritual arrogance, I believed I had his cure. I handed him my books. I instructed him on the breathing. I criticized his diet. "If you just do this," I'd say, "you'll be free." I pushed my method on him like a physician prescribing a single medicine for all ailments. For weeks he tried. I would see him struggling, forcing himself into a mold that was not his own. The breathing made him dizzy, the texts confused him, and the diet made him miserable. One evening he came to me, his shoulders slumped in defeat. "I can't do it, Elias," he said, his voice heavy with shame. "I must be broken. It works for you, but I just feel worse." In that moment I saw the damage I had done. I had taken my key and tried to force it into his lock. Instead of helping him find his own key, I had convinced him his door was unopenable. I learned that day that a path is sacred precisely because it is personal. To evangelize your method is to disrespect the infinite variety of ways the universe reveals itself. It turns a living practice into a rigid dogma. Your practice is your own intimate love affair with existence. Don't try to arrange the same marriage for others. Instead, simply live your life in such a way that they become inspired to find their own path, to build their own boat, one that is perfectly suited to the shape of their own soul. This led directly to my third and perhaps most insidious error, my judgments about others. Awakening can come with a dangerous side effect, a subtle sense of superiority. I had seen the light, and I began to see everyone else as living in darkness. This is the third thing you must guard with all your might, your judgments. I looked at people chasing careers, raising families, worrying about mortgages, and I saw them as asleep, trapped in a meaningless game. I had forgotten that just weeks before I was one of them. My sister, Clara, was a wonderful mother, deeply devoted to her 2 children. One afternoon, she was telling me about her worries. Her son was struggling in school, and she was anxious about making ends meet. In the past, I would have listened with empathy, but this new enlightened me listened with pity. "Clara," I said, my voice dripping with a condescending calm, "don't you see it's all an illusion? This worry is just your ego. Your son's struggles are just the universe playing itself out. Let it go." I will never forget the look on her face. It was a mixture of deep hurt and bewilderment. I had not offered her comfort. I had invalidated her entire life, her love, her very real maternal fears. I had used my spiritual understanding as a weapon to distance myself from the beautiful, messy reality of human connection. True awakening doesn't place you on a pedestal above the world. It drops you right into the heart of it, with a capacity for compassion so vast it can hold all the world's suffering without judgment. The moment you think you are awake and others are asleep, you have fallen into a deeper slumber than any of them. Your task is not to judge the dream, but to love the dreamer. The fourth thing is perhaps the most delicate, a truth so sharp it can wound if wielded carelessly. The experience of emptiness, of impermanence, of the groundlessness of existence. In my clarity, I saw that everything was like a phantom, a beautiful, shimmering mirage. Birth, death, gain, loss. They were all ripples on a surface of an ocean that was fundamentally empty and therefore full of infinite potential. This understanding brought me immense peace. But peace for one can be terror for another. A neighbor lost his wife of 40 years. He was hollowed out by grief, a walking ghost. In my misguided attempt to offer ultimate comfort, I sat with him and spoke of the impermanent nature of form. I told him that his wife was never truly a separate person to begin with, that his grief was an attachment to an illusion. I was trying to hand a starving man a philosophical treatise on the nature of bread. He didn't need a concept. He needed a shoulder to cry on. He needed my presence, my silent, shared humanity. My words, which felt so profound to me, were to him a deep and profound cruelty. They denied the reality of his love and the validity of his pain. I learned that you must meet people where they are. The absolute truth spoken without absolute compassion is a lie. The groundlessness of being is a terrifying abyss to one who has not yet grown wings. Your job is not to push them off the cliff. It is to sit with them at the edge, to share your warmth until they feel ready to discover the sky for themselves. Finally, the most dangerous of all, the secret that can cause the most harm if spoken aloud, the feeling of ultimate freedom, the sense that you are no longer bound by conventional rules and ethics. When the personal self dissolves, the rules made for that self can seem arbitrary. You see that right and wrong are relative constructs, that morality is a set of societal agreements. This can be intoxicating. It feels like you've been given a key to escape every prison. There was a promise I had made, a business commitment to a man who had trusted me. It was inconvenient. It would cost me time and money I no longer valued in the same way. The enlightened me reasoned that promises were concepts, that time was an illusion, and that my inner freedom was more important than this worldly obligation. So I broke my word. I justified it with a lofty spiritual explanation about being guided by a higher truth. The man was ruined. His family suffered, and I told myself it was his karma, his journey. It was the ugliest thing I have ever done. I had mistaken cosmic freedom for personal license. I had become a black hole of selfishness in the name of liberation. It took me years to understand. True freedom is not freedom from responsibility, but the freedom to respond with perfect love and integrity in every moment. The rules of society, the ethics of kindness, honesty, and compassion. They are not cages for the unenlightened. They are the grammar of love. They are the channels through which the formless can express itself as beauty and grace in the world of form. To think you are beyond them is the ultimate trap of the ego, dressing itself up in spiritual robes. Live with more integrity, not less. Be more trustworthy, not less. Let your freedom manifest as a radical commitment to kindness. I finished my story, and the cottage was quiet save for the crackling of the fire. Leo looked down at his empty cup, his earlier fire banked to a thoughtful, steady glow. He didn't say anything for a long time. "So," he finally whispered, "what do I do? What do I do with all this light?" I smiled and pointed out the window, towards the old stone tower standing sentinel against the twilight. "You become a lighthouse," I said. "Think about it, Leo. A lighthouse doesn't run up and down the coastline, screaming at ships about the one true way to navigate. It doesn't broadcast its own story of how it was built. It doesn't judge the ships that are off course or praise the ones that are sailing perfectly. It doesn't lecture them on the nature of water or the illusion of rocks. It just stands, it is solid, it is grounded, and it shines. It mines its own flame, keeping it bright and clear. It becomes a reliable, unwavering point of light in the darkness, and it trusts that every ship has its own captain, its own map, its own destination. It offers its light without condition, without agenda. It is a silent sermon of presence. The ships find their own way, guided by its light, but not commanded by it." I looked back at the young man, his eyes now filled not with frantic energy, but with a deep, quiet understanding. "Don't be a preacher, Leo. Be a lighthouse. Go back into the world and live your life. Love your family. Be a good friend. Work with integrity. Let the peace you've found seep into your every action. Let the compassion you've touched guide your every word. Don't talk about the light. Just be the light. Your presence will be your sermon. Your peace will be your method. And your love will be the only truth that ever needs to be shared."